دكتور علاء يكمل معانا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أنا بنتهز الفرصة إن أنا أقدم أستاذي أستاذ الأجيال الأستاذ الدكتور عبد المجيد النحاس. صراحة الكلمات اللي قالها الدكتور ناجي امبارح في ريوردنج اوف دكتور مجيد بتعبر عن كل اللي جوانا. بشكر الدكتور عبد المجيد بناء عن نفسي شخصيا، بناء عن كل الكانديدز اللي اتدربوا على ايد الدكتور عبد المجيد ان شيفيلد كيدني انستيتيوت، بناء عن كل الكانديدز اللي في مصر اللي استفادوا من خبره الدكتور عبد المجيد. وبنتهز الفرصه ان انا اشكر استاذي الفاضل استاذ الدكتور محمد صبح انه كان حلقه اللينك او حلقه الوصل ما بين الدكتور عبد المجيد والنفرولوجيست ان ايجيبت. شكرا دكتور عبد المجيد وجعل الله في ميزان حسناتك. The next speaker will be, as I said, Professor Meguid El Nahas. I'm sure we'll enjoy this presentation as we enjoyed the presentation yesterday. The title of his presentation will be How to Write a Paper. Professor Meguid, please.
Thank you very much. ألف شكر دكتور علاء. And as I said yesterday, I mean, one of the most rewarding things of a career in medicine is the career in teaching. And teaching people like Ala Sabri and Nagi Sayyid Ahmed, amongst many others, is probably one of the best legacy and one of the best pleasures I'm left with after 40 years in medicine. And Nagi said a lot of very nice things about me, but Nagi is a very special person, and for a good teacher to be a good teacher, he has to have the good material to teach, like Nagi, like Ala, and many others. And Nagi is outstanding in many ways. He's a very unusual character because he is very generous with himself. He's very generous with his knowledge, and he likes to share. And he's got a very unusual way of leadership. He has a very strong character, but it doesn't show straight away because he has a nice, quiet manner, and but very effective as well. And that's probably a unique way of being a leader, is to being gentle, but to being firm and to being generous with your colleague. And many of the young ones appreciate that. People like Mohammed Kamal, who's been outstanding in this conference, Ahmed Magdi, who's been everywhere, and all the young colleagues who he have fostered. Thank you very much. And it's really a privilege to have young colleagues and young brothers like Yala and like Nagi. Now I'll talk to you about how to write a paper. To do research is one thing, but to publish the research is very important. If you do research and you don't publish it, then it's to some extent very selfish. You do it for yourself, you do it for your promotion, you do it for your MD, but you don't share the knowledge and you don't share your findings, thank you, with the rest of us. And in order to share the knowledge, you have to publish your paper. Abstracts are not enough. So many of us publish hundreds of abstracts that never make it into a paper. Why? Because the papers are not well written. Why? Because the research is not well conducted. So I'll try to cover these 2 points in my talk, how to write a paper. Writing a paper is an art and a science. Why an art? Because you have to make it, and we'll see how, you have to make it attractive. You have to make it pleasing to read. People want to read and enjoy reading it, not dry. But it has to be also scientific, rigorous, truthful, and accurate. And we'll try to combine these two, and I'll give you examples and try to be interactive with you. And as we said, respect for yourself when you do research, respect for the others in terms, and we'll see how, and being honest with yourself and honest with the others. So we'll go through the title, we'll go through how to write an abstract, how to do an introduction, and all these different elements. Starting with the title. The title is the brand. The title is what will catch people's eye on PubMed, on Medline, in meetings, and so on. So you want the title to be attractive. You want somebody, it's like in a shop window, to stop and look and say, oh, I want to buy this. I want to read that article. It has to be informative. The title has to represent what you've done. and not fake news. And it has to be realistic and so on. So I'll give you 3 titles. Let's say you've done a study on CKD and ACE inhibition. And we all know that CKD and ACE inhibition has been around since 1993, the paper of Ed Lewis in the New England Journal of Medicine back then. So it's not new, but you want to write yet another paper on ACE inhibition, and you've got 3 choices of titles. The first one is ACE inhibition slow the progression of diabetic nephropathy. The second one is the administration of ACE inhibitors is more beneficial in cases. It's a long title. And the third one is ACE inhibition in diabetic nephropathy. An established treatment, new findings. So if you have these 3, who will be attracted by the first one and want to read it? Just show your hands. Okay, but you already know that ACE inhibition slows the progression of diabetic nephropathy. So if you have something else to do, like watch a game of Ahli or Zamalek, you will not want to spend an hour reading this paper because you know that ACE inhibition slows the progression of diabetic nephropathy. So I would not stop there. Who will use the second title? It's too long. It's almost an abstract. It's not a title anymore. But the third one may be more interesting. An established treatment. كلنا متفقين على إنه established treatment, but new findings. يا ترى إيه new findings؟ أنا عايز أقرأ علشان أكتشف بيقول إيه على الACE inhibition اللي هو new اللي أنا مش عارفه. I would go for the third one. So make it attractive, make it eye-catching, but also make it accurate. ما تقولوش new findings ويقرا 6 صفحات وما يلاقيش حاجة جديدة. يبقى أنت ضحكت عليه. The authorship is important, and I think I want to stop here for a while, because very often is the source of fights, conflicts, and people falling out with each other. So who's the first author, who's the second author, who's the last author is important. Fairness dictates that the first author هو اللي عمل الشغل. يعني هو اللي عمل البحث، هو اللي تابع المرضى، هو اللي حلل العينات وهكذا. The second author is somebody who helped him or her a lot. Let's say you've done a study and you measured complement, C3 or C3nef, like Professor El-Kosi was saying. Your study would not be publishable if you didn't measure C3nef. So the person who helped you and measured and collaborated with you is a key contributor and a key associate ويستاهل إنه يبقى second author. The last author is very important. They usually call him or her the senior author, and he can be the one who came up with the idea. Your supervisor who suggested to study C3nef in minimal change nephrotic syndrome. You say, well, why should I study C3nef in minimal change? He has an idea, he has a hypothesis, so you have to give him credit. But all too often, the senior author has nothing to do with the paper. صاحب المعمل، صاحب العمارة اللي فيها المعمل، مساهم في المستشفى، يعني لا علاقة له بالبحث. إنما فارض نفسه على المقالة وفارض نفسه على البحث, and he wants to be the senior author. And this is where sometimes it is unfair. Or the senior professor want to be the first author, مع إنه يعني يا دوبك جه مرة ولا مرتين في ال6 أشهر اللي البحث اتعمل فيهم ومعلومته بالبحث superficial, إنما he wants to be the first author. And that's not fair. So it has to be fair and comprehensive, and it's always best to agree from the onset of the research who will be the first author and who will be the senior author. ودي مهمة للpromotion ومهمة للimpact factor and مهمة للrecognition of the researcher. So avoid conflict and avoid problems by deciding early. Different types of abstracts, and again I'll show you some, and we can decide how best is to portray the and to write the abstract of a study. Let's say again we're working on ACE inhibition, and now we want to stop ACE inhibition at CKD stage 5 to see the impact on progression. So that's a proposed abstract, and I want you to tell me what's wrong with it. So I'm saying here the progression of CKD is often relentless. Some patients respond to ACE inhibition by reduction in proteinuria and slowing the rate of progressions. Others fail to respond. We investigated CASA. We studied 44 patients. eGFR at the time of discontinuation was 14. Stopping ACE or ARB led to a marked improvement in kidney function in the majority of patients. مين يرضى بالابستراكت ده ومين يعترض عليه ويقول ده ما ينفعنيش او ده inaccurate او insufficient؟ دكتور ناجي ايه رايك لو كان ده abstract؟
I wouldn't go for it because it's a bit redundant. There is a very long introduction that is not necessary, and you can't just end up by the essence of this, the meaning that you want to propagate it.
Yeah. So as Nagy said, that's a summary. ده ملخص. It's not an abstract. Abstract, it's a bit like Twitter. Twitter is not a bad way to learn to pass a message in a small number of words. The same with the abstract. You've got 150, you've got 500 words, and you have to put 3 years of research, 6 pages of a publication in 500 words. So you have to be concise. Best don't tell a story, give facts. So you need, as he said, the introduction was too long, so it can be shorter, and give some facts. You studied 44 patients. At the time, can GFR كذا plus or minus between brackets standard deviation. Improvement can at the A. Statistics can significant ولا لأ, and so on and so forth. So the abstract should contain some data. The abstract should contain some results, and not be just a little story. So don't tell a story, give facts, and always obvious. We'll come back to spell check. Give summary, give some data, and give statistics. Don't give too much. You can't put 1,000 words and rewrite the paper as an abstract and as a paper. And that's why I say Twitter is not a bad practice. Practice to pass a message with a few words. Keywords. Introduction. You start by talking about what has been done in the field. You quote some key references, and I'll come back to key studies and key references. And some of this applies to thesis writing as well. Then you say why you want to do your study and what is the aim and objective of what you want to do. For a paper, avoid a very long introduction. For a thesis, your introduction can be 20 pages for an MD thesis. But for a paper, it shouldn't be more than, let's say, a page. Quote key papers. I think there is a tendency to quote review articles. So you would say, over the last 25 years, كذا, key studies were in 93 فلان لقى كذا, Remuzzi لقى كذا, and so on and so forth. With that in mind, we decided to study the effects of stopping ACE inhibitors or ARBs on renal function in CKD5. All too often, you don't quote original work because you haven't read it. You quote the latest review article وتعتبر هو ده اللي أثبت إن الACE inhibitor is beneficial. لا، ده راجع وكتب ملخص ال 12 إنما he's not the one who should be credited in your introduction referring back to the original work. And this is when you don't quote the original work. ACE was found to decrease proteinuria in diabetic patients. There are spelling mistakes in this in this slide, by the way, and I'll ask you to spot them. And you بتحط النحاس 2018 أو سليمان 2019 because that's the last thing you've read, and that's probably the only review article you've read, and you don't know who was the first one to show this or to show that. So give credit to the pioneers, give credit to people who did the first and original and good work, and don't just quote somebody who sat in an office and summarized. So there are spelling mistakes in that introduction, but I'll come to spelling mistakes later on anyway. Be careful with introduction where you copy and paste phrases and paragraphs on the subjects from other papers. And the easiest way beside computer programs for copy and paste whenever I read a thesis or a paper, copy and paste is easy in the introduction. هتلاقي الإنجليزي ممتاز والأمريكاني ممتاز لأنه منقول ومتلزق أو مطبوع. When you look at the discussion of the same paper by the same author, هتلاقي الإنجليزي يختلف تماماً لأنه مش قادر يعمل copy and paste ومضطر يكتب بالإنجليزي بتاعه. You find that he has an excellent English in the introduction لأنه منقول, وتلاقي he has a different English in his own discussion. So don't worry, use your own English, use your own words, and it's as good as anything. English is the poorest Indo-European language. It's the poorest European language, and it's 30 to 40% poorer than Italian, French, or German. It has no gender, so you don't know feminine, masculine gender. So it's the simplest language available. And that's why everybody speaks English. So don't be shy if you speak it badly. Everybody speaks English badly because English is a poor language. 30%. And you know that 30% of English words are from Arabic origin. And English is 40% poorer than French, German, or Italian. And it's the same root, Indo-European language. So don't be shy if you don't speak English well, but use your words and don't use other people's words. Justify why you want to do the study. And here there are spelling mistakes. Who can spot them? And they're common ones. بتلاقيها في الرسائل, بتلاقيها في المقالات, وبتلاقيها في الابstracts. دكتور هالة. Proteinuria, very often people from the Middle East spell proteinuria rather than proteinuria. ايه تاني? It's not glomerular nephritis, it's glomerulonephritis. But proteinuria is one that you see very often. It's not urea. It's not the urea and the protein in the urine. It's proteinuria, and it's not glomerular nephritis. It's glomerulonephritis and proteinuria. So be careful with spelling. And it's sad and disappointing when you see a teacher, an assistant professor, and even a professor who writes a paper and he doesn't know how to spell proteinuria. وده أستاذ نفرولوجي مش عارف ينطق, مش عارف يستهجى proteinuria اللي هي أساسية بالنسبة لنا. Then aim of the study. You have to identify primary endpoint, وهنرجع لأهمية primary endpoint and secondary endpoint. So if you do a study on ACE inhibition or stopping ACE inhibition, you want to know the effect primarily on kidney function and the progression of CKD. Secondary on proteinuria, thirdly on perhaps blood pressure control, fourth on lipids, whatever. But the study will be based on the primary endpoint. Changes in GFR, changes in the eGFR or GFR slope, and so on and so forth. Doubling of serum creatinine, and you'll have to define it as we'll see later on. We'll come to the method. And you have to define what you're doing if you're doing a clinical trial. You have to say if it's a phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3 clinical trial. I'll ask some young doctors at the back, what is phase 1? Karim. Salim. Karim, what is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trial? علي صوتك مش سامع. ها؟ لا فيز لا كله كلينيكال خلاص، ما كله اكسبيرمنتال، ما احنا بنعمل ستاديز على عيانين، واحده بنعتبرها فيز 1، واحده بنعتبرها فيز 2، والثالثه بنعتبرها فيز 3. في فيز 1 عايزين نعرف لو كانت tolerable وسيف على volunteers، مظبوط، healthy volunteers، كويس. فيز 2 عايزين نعرف بقى لو كان الدواء ده له مفعول على المرضى بتوعنا في المرض اللي احنا بنعالجه. طب فيز 3 لا ما وصلناش للماركتنج لسه لا ففيز 1 توكسيسيتي سيفتي هيلثي فولunteer and so on. اطمنا ان الدواء سيف، هنخش على POC proof of concept. الكونسبت بتاعي انه ريتوكسيماب effective in diabetic nephropathy. فاجيب شويه عيانين عندهم diabetic nephropathy، اديهم ريتوكسيماب واشوف مفعوله لو كان effective او لا. لقيناه في يعني possibility او probability انه effective، عايزين بقى to prove it in a much larger randomized prospective large scale clinical trial. So you have to go through these true phases and know. So when you do your study, you have to tell the reader whether it's phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. And you have to tell the reader what type of clinical trial. Is it prospective? Is it randomized? Is it crossover? You have to explain what is randomization. يعني اخترت الجروب A ده ازاي واخترت الجروب B ازاي. Because if your randomization is not correct, you can stop here and go home وما تكملش. لو كان كل جروب A فوق ال60 وميلز وافريكان امريكانز، وجروب B كلهم اقل من 20 سنه فيميلز من المنصوره او الغربيه or whatever, they're not comparable. So there's no point spending 3 years studying them. So you have to randomize so that the two groups from the beginning are selected in such a way that there's no bias and they are comparable, so you can follow them and hope to get result. The reason why I put stress on the primary endpoint, وفي الحالة دي عايزين نstudy the progression of chronic kidney disease and changes in EGFR, the primary endpoint will determine the size and the number of the patient we want to include in group A, and the size and the number of patients we want to include in group B, which will be similar, or could be similar. And it's very important to have the right size. Again, like randomization. If randomization is biased, يعني the paper of Lewis 1993 اللي قالت لنا captopril slow the progression of diabetic nephropathy can biased from the onset. Group A اللي ما أخدش captopril كان عنده heavy proteinuria. Group B اللي أخد captopril كان عنده low level proteinuria. وبعد كده قال captopril slows the progression of diabetic nephropathy. ما طبعا Group B اللي أخد captopril statistically less proteinuria than group A اللي ما خدش captopril. فالstudy was biased. So you have to know your sample size and have a good sample size. If you don't have enough patients in your groups, you can't apply statistics. If you can't apply statistics, you can't determine لو كان ده أعلى من ده. You see people, and we saw some example yesterday, when you have a blue line and a red line on top of each other. والمعلق يقول لك لا اصل ده اعلى من ده. مش حكايه ده اعلى من ده وده اوطى من ده، في حاجه اسمها statistics وتثبت ان في فرق بين الخط الازرق والخط الاحمر او جروب A وجروب B. Then you need, when you analyze the data, to know whether it's PP or IT. What does PP mean and what does IT mean? What type of analysis? يلا يا شباب اللي ورا. This is how you will analyze your data at the end, but you have to set it up from the beginning. لا, you have done many clinical trials يا دكتورة هالة, and لازم تعرفي PPA و ITA. PP is per protocol. IT is intention to treat. يعني ايه؟ intention to treat ابتدينا ب50 عيان وابتدينا ب50 عيان. دول اللي احنا عندنا intention to study them. We will analyze all the data of these patients 50 و50. يعني احنا معانا 100. كل واحد من دول هنتابعه حتى لو قعد ساعة أو نص ساعة في الكلينيكال ترايل. هنحلل ال100 وهنحلل اللي عمل دروب اب لغاية ما ساب الترايل. بير بروتوكول ابتدوا 100 وخلصوا 12، هنحلل ال12 بس. وهنقول ده أحسن من ده، ولو إن 80 واحد يمكن ده كان أوحش من ده، بس سبناهم. So it's always important to analyze all the data as per intention to treat when we designed the study and began the intention to do the study. So IT and PP is important.
Can you repeat it again, معلش? Can you repeat this point?
Intention to treat, you analyze at the end of the study everybody.
Okay.
كل اللي ابتديتي بيهم حتى لو ما كملوش الستادي. لأن ممكن واحد ما كملش لأنه جاله serious side effect. التاني ما كملش لأن الدواء خطير ومات. فدول إذا شلناهم and didn't analyze them عسى إن نلاقي دراج ده مفيد. بس إحنا تجاهلنا اللي dropped out، اللي ما استحملش العلاج، اللي جاله side effects، اللي مات من العلاج. So the best way to analyze the data is to include everybody regardless of whether they have completed the study or not.
بس دي لها bias برضه. يعني it could be biased. يعني if you take all these per protocol اللي وقعوا دول واللي ما كملوش خالص فلما تاخدهم في البول of the statistics it will bias it will be يعني some statistical bias أظن كده.
Even if it is statistical bias, it will be better that if you start with 100 and you end up analyzing 6.
يعني it depends on the topic. If
دكتور عمرو.
As was my intention in the beginning, that this person to get placebo, not to get the active drug. It doesn't matter what he gets during the study, but it matters was my intention to treat. So it's only, not only the quantitation, but also the quality. And EVOLVE study is one of the major studies that has, we talked all the time about EVOLVE trial because almost 40% of the placebo group received the cinacalcet, and 35% or so of the cinacalcet group didn't get it.
Yeah.
And you still they analyze patients who get cinacalcet as placebo.
Mohsen Al-Kosi reviewed in a very good book called Informing Clinical Trials
From clinical practice in nephrology.
Practice in
Yeah,
nephrology.
yes, role of randomized clinical
He
trial.
edited a book with me and Dr. Arif Khawaja, and we reviewed something like 200 major clinical trials. أخذنا lupus nephritis, أخذنا diabetic nephropathy, أخذنا CAPD، كل الكي trials لغاية 2015. ولقينا إن 90% من الترايلز معيبين في حاجة من الحاجات دي. Randomization not described, sample size inadequate, follow-up inadequate, مش intention to treat وهكذا.
Yeah, one of the good things about the reporting of the trial at the end is to describe both analysis. To say this, I mean, per protocol analysis was like that, and the intention to treat analysis was like that. And it leaves it to just the reader to analyze what he would like to just understand from both.
I think this is the wise approach, is to combine in the article both of them. Because sometimes you transplant a patient and the patient is not Egyptian, he's referred to his home. So if we consider him with us, his creatinine is good and everything is fine. Although we lost his follow-up. Yeah. So how to analyze him and the intention to treat. So I analyze intention to treat and then I give the analysis per protocol analysis.
But back to writing a paper, you have to state what you're doing. بس. وبعد كده do whatever you do. نخش على informed consent to Declaration of Helsinki. It's mainly about protecting papers' right. There are things like GCP. Does anybody know what GCP stands for? Good clinical practice, good research practice, good laboratory practice. And there are international criteria for good clinical practice. أهمها to design, conduct, monitor, and perform clinical trial to the best of your ability, to the best of the patient interest, into the best of safety and good conduct. And then we come to the informed consent, and that's a very interesting subject because it should be informed consent or refusal. We impose on the patient when we ask him to consent. لا احنا مفروض نقول له عايزين منك يا informed consent to do a kidney biopsy مثلا أو informed refusal. فبالنسبة للترايل بنديله الورقة الفلانية. I, Mr. Muhammad Abdel Al, agree to participate in the clinical trial on its progression of EGFR, its inhibition on GFR. ويمضي ويحط التاريخ. Totally inadequate. أولاً محمد عبد العال مش فاهم يعني إيه ACE inhibition. ثانياً مش فاهم يعني إيه EGFR. ويمضي ويختم أو يبصم دلوقتي لازم يبصم ما يمضيش لأن الإمضاءات ما بقتش موثوق بيها. يبصم ونقعد 3 سنين ندرس فيه. مين يرضى بالكونسنت فورم ده؟ ومين يرفضه؟ دكتور سعيد رفضه ليه؟ ما احنا بندي العيانين وقولوا له امضي واختم وتعالى. بالظبط. هقول له يا سيدي بص ده دواء كويس وخليك واثق فيا وانا عايزك تخليك معايا 3 سنين. أنا راجل طيب وابن حلال وما تخافش وأنا هقعد معاك 3 سنين وإن شاء الله كله خير. You need to tell him much more. You need to tell him as Professor Said said in terms he understands. يعني عايزين ندرس how to protect your kidneys بدواء. إن وظائف الكلى ما تتدهورش بسرعة مثلا. Why you want to do that? ايه الريسك؟ ايه اللي هيتعمل له؟ هياخد دواء كم مرة في اليوم؟ يمكن 3 حقن في اليوم. يقول انا مش عايز 3 حقن في اليوم لمدة 3 سنين ولا حقنة في الاسبوع. انا بخاف من الحقن. What are the possible complications? Minor and major. What are the risks that he may die during the trial? لان اذا ما تقلوش في بعض البلاد وبرضه دكتور عمرو أدرى يمكن تيجي مراته ابنه وبنته يقولوا انت ما قلتلناش ان الدواء ده potentially fatal فانا عايز تعويض 10 ولا 20 مليون دولار لان انتوا قتلتوا قريبي ولا and there's more and more of that. what are his option؟ لان العيان خايف، انت جاي تقول له لازم نعمل استادي دي مهمه ودي هتفيدك وهتفيد المرضى، وتفرض عليه ده. لا، he has to have the right to accept or refuse.
may lead to نعمل له بيها بيلوني وبعدين above knee وممكن تموت مش هيدخل اساسا. فاحنا شعب برضو ايموشن شويه، فحضرتك برضو نخليها بلطف يعني مش frankly هتموت يعني.
لا you're absolutely right. You have to be detailed, you have to be sensitive, and you have to be culturally sensitive. يعني ناقشنا وكان دكتور طارق معانا لما ناقشنا communication skills من شهر ولا من شهرين، وفي انجلترا بنقول لهم كل حاجه بكل وضوح. انت في احتمال ان you will die within 3 weeks ومش عارف ايه، وبكل صراحه و it's important to be open و transparent with the patient. different culture تقول لا، ما تقولوش كده، انت اديله امل واديله ولو كان الامل يعني مش واقعي انما هيساعدك في علاج هذا المريض. So okay, but give him facts and it can be as many patients, but more important give him time to decide. يعني ما تقعدوش قدامك في المكتب وتقول له عايزينك تشترك في الدراسة دي ولو سمحت امضي الورقة دي لان انا محتاج لها. هيتلخم وما عندوش. قول له خد الورقة دي اقراها في البيت وشوف حد يشرحها لك وانا مستعد اشرحها لك تاني وتالت، وتعالى بعد اسبوع واستشير الناس اللي عندك في البيت وزملائك ودكاترة تانية وارجع قول لي من هكذا.
بروفيسور مجيد، if you allow me to interrupt، انا بتذكر حدث بسيط قوي كنت مع حضرتك في الاوت بيشنت كلينيك ان ذا جراوند فلور، والدكتور عبد المجيد كان بريكنج ذا باد نيوز فور ا بيشنت كان عنده ميتاستاسيس وبروفيسور مجيد انفورم دام هي ويل داي ان جاست 3 مانثس، وانا اتخضيت. انما الاكسبتنس بتاع المريض نفسه انا متذكر قال لحضرتك my nephew is in Australia can I see him يعني. فطبعا الفرق زي ما الدكتوره هاله الكالتشر اكسبتنس نفسيه.
You have to take into consideration cultural and emotion. That's why back to good clinical doctors لازم تاخد وقتك تسمع المريض تقعد معاه and take your time to explain and the family and so on. So come to the result. The main thing about result, be honest about the result. And one of the problems we have is many journals don't like to publish negative studies. Yani if you say rituximab doesn't work in diabetic nephropathy, it may not be accepted. If you say diabetic nephropathy improves by rituximab, it will be published straight away, even if it is a poor paper and badly randomized and underpowered and so on. So negative results sometimes is a problem. And negative results, in my experience as a supervisor over many years, is one of the main causes of fraud وغش. لأن الطالب أو اللي بيعمل الرسالة أو بيعمل الدكتوراه مقتنع إنه بعد 3 سنين لقى إن العلاج ده أو اللي بيبحث عليه لا مفعول له على هذا المرض، هيقول لا طب أنا فشلت. لازم أثبت إنه له مفعول، إنه نزل حاجة، نزل proteinuria، حسن GFR. Then you find, but don't forget that the negative result is a result. If rituximab doesn't work in diabetic nephropathy, that's very important. People will not use this drug, which is potentially dangerous, in people where it doesn't work. So remember, a negative result is a positive result. And cheating can be very tempting, and I've seen people adding 1 or 2 points on a graph علشان statistics توصل تبقى significant. But انت بتضحك على نفسك، ما بتضحكش على حد تاني. And these are some data. 72% of researchers have seen colleagues doing questionable practice. 34% in one study يعني. Say they've committed other questionable research practices. 14% who've seen colleagues cheat. 2% admit that they have cheated. وطبعا النسبة هتبقى أعلى من 14.2% لأن اللي بيغش مش هيعترف. So don't cheat, it's a stain. It will stick on yourself and you won't be able. And it stays with you because next time you do the next study, ما انت كدبت اول مرة هتضطر تكذب تاني مرة وهتضطر تكذب تالت مرة وهتلاقي كل شغلك بقى مش موثوق فيه. يوم ما تكتشف ان في كذبة الناس هتفقد الثقة في كل شغلك وفي كل ابحاثك وفيك كطبيب وفيك كحكيم وفيك كشخص. So results, make it logical, ابتدي general observation and then go to specific subsection, the effect of stopping the drug on renal function, primary endpoint, the effect of stopping the drug on proteinuria, secondary endpoint, other effects of the intervention, side effects and so on. And do not leave results out لأنه هيتساءل طب هو قال إنه عمل دراسة الليبيدز ليه ما جابش نتيجتها؟ هو قال إن هيشوف الإفكت on heart failure ليه ما جابش سيرتها؟ ففي حاجة suspicious. So put everything. One thing that you tend to do and many people tend to do when they present data, they put the data in numerical form like GFR improved by كذا ويعيد الرقم ده في table 1 ويحطوا الرقم ده لثالث مرة في figure 1. So choose your way of presenting a given result. You can write it down or you can say 32 of 44 showed an improvement in renal function بين قوسين table 1. يعني روح لتيبل 1 الأرقام كلها موجودة. روح لفيجر 1 الجراف موجود وهيوضح الأرقام. أو حط الأرقام يبقى ساعتها أنت مش محتاج إلا لو كان في حاجات تانية هتزودها. Don't say in your result, this may be due to the fact that this patient had slow progression before stoppage. دي مناقشة وليست result. And again, a lot of people mix the two. The patient's proteinuria didn't decrease, نقطة. Maybe because the level of proteinuria was too low and the dose of ACE inhibition was not high enough. ده مناقشة. مش result. Result is result. وبرضه the beneficial effect is due to reversal of suppression of remnant glomerular hyperfiltration. ده تحت خانة الدiscussion وليس تحت خانة results. So you present your own data لقيت كذا 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 and show the figures and numbers and tables. Explain why in the discussion and then compare your findings with previous publication. My data agree with the study of فلانة وعلان أو my study result differ from the study of فلان وعلان. يبقى ساعتها why? Because I've used a different population. Because I've used a different drug, because my protocol was different to their protocol. Don't do too much speculation. Acknowledge at the end of your discussion your study limitation. I acknowledge that I did not follow the patient up for 5 to 10 years. Maybe the result would be different. I acknowledge that the sample size was small and there were many dropouts, which may bias the result if I include all the patient in my intention to treat analysis. وهكذا. لأن if you don't list your own limitation, هيجي الريفيور هيحطهم وهيرفض البيبر. أقل ما فيها لما تحطهم أنت بنفسك هيبقى واضح إن أنت دريان وعارف ال strengths of your study and the weakness and limitation of study. وده مش عيب لأن كل study لها limitation. وكل study وأي بحث بتعمله مع الوقت واحد تاني هيحسنه، ومع الوقت هيتضح انه في ضعف وفي عيوب وممكن يتحسن. And then you say in a small study with 44 patients, you conclude in this study, it shows beyond any doubt that ACE inhibitions are dangerous in patients with CKD stage 5 and should be stopped in all patients with CKD 5. You studied a small number of patients. It is a proof of concept. It's too strong. You can't say that. So stopping ACE inhibitor CKD stage 5, delay the onset and saves life. انت ما درستش mortality. انت درست primary endpoint can slow the progression. ده كفاية عليك. And the study is not powered. So many people rely in big studies on the positive effect on secondary endpoint. الستادي مش معمولة ومش designed to study secondary endpoint. If you find an effect on secondary endpoint, دي فكرة تدي لك hypothesis عسى إن ترجع تبحثها تاني وتثبت إن لها effect. So قلنا على الإنجليزي. Don't forget to acknowledge وأشكر people اللي ساعدوك لو ما كانوش co-authors، وأشكر الناس اللي عملوا funding، الجامعة، الوحدة وهكذا. And declare presence or absence of conflict of interest like Dr. Amr did yesterday at the beginning of his talk. So to write a paper, you are as good as your last paper. A lot of people يقول لك أنا نشرت 20 paper، يعني هتيجي على دي وخلاص أي كلام بقى وانشر 21 paper. آخر واحدة هي اللي هتتقري السنة دي أو الشهر ده، ويقولوا إيه البيبر الضعيفة ده راجل أي بيتكلم أي كلام، وهينسوا ال50 ولا ال60 paper اللي اتنشروا قبل كده. Pay attention to details big and small. Read and reread and make sure you spell check and get some friends and colleagues to read and review your paper before you submit it. And once you've read it and did 10 drafts, read it once more. And it's like a puzzle. Just be meticulous, put one thing after the other, and don't lose sight of being honest, and your final purpose is to share truthful knowledge. مش fake news, truthful knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Meguid. يعني المحاضرة very informative even for the professor. We'll move to the next speaker.